And hoping for good weather for the PEI Marathon, which is just a couple of weeks away, I think 3 weeks from yesterday. Once again, Natasha McCarthy is going to be running in the 5K. You'll likely spot her. She'll be the one sporting the "Screw You Parkinsons" t-shirt. The mother of two received her diagnosis of Parkinson's last year at the age of 36. Later on in the show, we're going to hear about Natasha's treatment, her attitude of gratitude, and her future goals. But first, I also spoke with Natasha about her blog, which has really helped to connect many people with Parkinson's from all around the world.
Much to my surprise, it's got a worldwide audience. When I first started to write it, I had no intentions on sharing it. I can't hold a pen to write. So I was basically using it like a journal to get things off my chest. And at some point along the line, it occurred to me that, maybe there's someone else with the same struggles and has kids, and that maybe I'll share it. And I shared it once on Facebook, and it just went haywire. So yeah, the Michael J. Fox Foundation, I was a guest blogger with them a couple of times. Sometimes they'll reshare it. In fact, they just reshared one last night. And I get contacted from, people. I got 3 emails last night from people all over the world that have kids and have Parkinson's and,
really?
Wanting to connect and talk about ideas. And it's awesome. I'm pretty blown away. I never would have dreamt I would ever be considered any form of a writer.
And to find that community, to find other people, because you probably aren't finding too many people on PEI, are you?
There's not a whole lot of us that I know of. A lot of people with Parkinson's, when you're younger, tend to hide it or try to hide it for fear of, work and, whatever the case. So it's definitely been great that way. I've connected with a lot of people, and, we share ideas on, sometimes you'll get prescribed something new, which I did in the spring and opted not to take yet. But I have people now that I can go to and say, hey, have you been prescribed this medication, and, how are the side effects and whatnot. Right. So it's definitely great to have a community of people, even if they're not so close. And I'm going to the World Parkinson's Congress in Portland, Oregon in 2016.
Really?
Yeah, I'm an official blogging partner of theirs, so I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully meeting a lot of these people that I email back and forth throughout the course of a month.
Another goal you've set for the future.
Another goal. It'll be a long trip, but hopefully it'll be great.
That's Natasha McCarthy. Her blog, it really is a fantastic journal she's keeping. It can be found at Natasha Chronicles, all one word, natashachronicles.blogspot.ca. And we'll continue our conversation with Natasha after 8 o'clock this morning as she preps once again for a 5K run. That's coming up after 8 o'clock. Well, it was certainly hard to miss Natasha McCarthy and her friends at last year's 5K run at the PEI Marathon. They were the ones wearing the bright blue shirts that said, "Screw You Parkinsons." Just weeks before, at the age of 36, Natasha had been diagnosed with young-onset Parkinson's disease. Now, more than a year later, in a year that's seen its fair share of challenges, Natasha is getting set to run it again. And she joined me here in the studio to share her story. Good morning, Natasha.
Good morning.
We're going to talk about the big marathon that's just around the corner. Not that close around the corner. We got some training time here. We're going to talk about your 5K preparations in just a moment. But I was checking out your blog with natashachronicles.blogspot.ca. You're a very good writer, and you recently posted about the 1-year anniversary of your diagnosis, the paper anniversary. Can you talk about that, about how that felt 1 year later?
Well, mostly 1 year later felt good. I was grateful for the most part because a year and a bit before that, before I started treatment, life was pretty hard. I had days I could barely get out of bed and couldn't move around very easily. So now, a year later, treatment works for the most part quite well. I have crashes and peak times, but I've learned how to manage my life and do my exercise and do any, activities with the kids around a medication dose when I'm at my prime. So life's much better a year later, which is why I chose to celebrate my anniversary with Parkinson's.
When did you first know that something wasn't right here?
It was 15 months from the time I was officially diagnosed. Before that things in my body started to not work. I started to have trouble holding a pen to write and use my right hand at all, actually, for anything kind of fine motor related. When you work in an office, that makes life a little tough. So, yeah, it was a 15-month road because they don't typically suspect someone young having Parkinson's, so it wasn't on the radar, and it took some trips off island before it got figured out.
When you first heard that word, what was your thought?
The first time I heard it was a year ago this past April. The first words that came out of my mouth when he said, "I think you have Parkinson's," were, oddly enough, "Thank you," because I was starting to think I was losing my mind. I was seeing all these doctors and they couldn't figure out what was wrong, but I knew my body wasn't working right. So oddly enough, that was that was the first thought, was thank you. The next thought was, I thought Parkinson's was a disease that old people got, which is what most people think. So I didn't know anything about it. So there was certainly a kick in the gut feeling, and I think I punched the steering wheel a few times on the drive back to PEI from St. John, and a lot of emotions. And then you have to do some research and figure out what it is, because they don't give you a manual in the doctor's office when they tell you something like that.
And what have you found out about just how rare that diagnosis is for someone of your age in their 30s? Do you hear that?
The statistics vary, but they say somewhere in the vicinity of 10 to 15% of people will get Parkinson's under 55. And if you're under 55, they consider you young onset.
You have 2 children?
I do. I have a 7-year-old who's in grade 2. Her name's Samantha, and Isabella will be 4 in December.
And do I understand your husband has to travel quite a bit?
My husband works in Alberta for weeks at a time.
So obviously some challenges to overcome here over the last little while. How have you adjusted on the home front?
Well, I never set out to be a stay-at-home mom. I love my children, but I was a career girl, so giving up work and being a forced-on stay-at-home mom was certainly an obstacle and something hard to get used to. But I actually think having my husband away is beneficial health-wise, because I don't have a choice to rely on him. That keeps me engaged with the kids, because everything I do is to try and continue to be a good memory maker with my kids. I don't want their memories to be of me laying on the couch. So there's some days that are rough. I take horseback riding once a week for therapy, for leg strength and balance and posture. And my ride this week was a little rough. My legs were not as cooperative as they should be. But the more I exercise, the better I feel. And it's the only proven way to slow progression of Parkinson's. There's a million different reasons why someone with Parkinson's should stay active, even though some days it's harder than others.
Which brings us to the running that I do want to talk with you about in just a moment. Have you had to have that conversation with the kids just to talk about what's going on?
Absolutely. Before I was diagnosed, my daughter, who was only about 5 at the time, when we didn't know what was wrong, and there was days that I was in bed, there were nights that she cried herself to sleep and thought Mommy was going to die. So there was no not telling her. If anything, it was a giant relief for her to know what Mommy has, and that now the doctors give Mommy some medicine that makes me, work better and feel better. My little one won't really grow up knowing the difference. My oldest will still ask, like, Mom, are you going to build the luge track that used to build in the backyard when the snowplow comes? And I can do a lot, but that's something I can't do anymore.
Sure.
So, there's some adjustment for them, but she's much happier knowing now what's wrong, and she actually will randomly tell people on the street that Mom has Parkinson's, which
a nice conversation starter,
which is kind of odd, but she's very comfortable with it now, and I wouldn't want to hide it from them. I mean, they should know that as well.
You said a word earlier, and I noticed this word come up in your blog as well, and that word is grateful, gratitude. Where does that sense of gratitude come from?
We all have something to be grateful for, and I'm grateful that I know what's wrong, so that I know what to do to keep myself healthy as long as I can and keep my body working as best as I can. I mean, it is degenerative. It's going to get worse, but moping about it and feeling sorry for yourself, I tried that, and it doesn't make anything better. So I think you just need to find the joy in each day, even the crappy ones, and try and find something positive so that you can push through the next day.
When you pushed through running a 5K last year at the PEI Marathon, what was that experience like?
It was crazy.
This was just after you'd been diagnosed, wasn't it?
It was, I think, not much more than 3 weeks or a month, something like that, after I was officially diagnosed. I had some great friends. We sported some shirts that said, "Screw you, Parkinson's." I think everybody at the marathon probably thought, what the heck is happening?
That's a great message, though.
That's kind of my motto. So, yeah, I had a couple of girls that agreed to run it with me who either have been or are runners and certainly could have done it faster and better, but they agreed to do it with me because I crash out at about 2.5, 3 kilometers is pretty much my body's max. So 5 is pushing it. The last kilometer, I shake. My tremors go in full force with any kind of, adrenaline is not a Parky's friend. So yeah, it was tough.
When they said your name, and they do say your name, everybody who comes across that finish line, and you knew you'd done it, what was the feeling for you?
I actually started to cry the last block. The girls that were with me, I was pretty much done and I didn't have any steam left. And like I said, I was shaking so bad that when we turned the last corner, the girls said, "Do you hear that? Do you hear them all cheering? That's the end." And I immediately started to cry. And one of the girls said, "Don't cry yet. You still have to breathe to finish the end." So I took a big lump in my throat and swallow, and I tried to hold off on the tears until the end. But it was definitely emotional. It was something I didn't think I could do. I'm terrified to say that I'm registered to do it again because it's up to Parkinson's sometimes how well the body's going to work. But if I have to walk some of it, I have to walk some of it. That's just the way it is.
How important is that kind of goal setting, though, like having these kinds of things to look forward to and to challenge you?
I think it's very important. I think too often people with Parkinson's will give up or assume they can't do something because they know it's going to be hard and a lot of times exercise is something they give up. Even in the moments that sometimes I think I'm crazy to sign up for this or do these things, even if I can't finish it the way I would like to, I think it's important to keep trying at least. And every time I can do it, it is, I guess, my way of telling Parkinson's, like, screw you, because I just did it again and I'm going to keep trying to do it until I can't.
Well, you had that shirt on recently, didn't you? Didn't you do the Super Walk?
I did, the Parkinson's Super Walk. And I had a great team. They named the team Natasha's Ninjas, and everybody had shirts made with the name on the front and "Screw You Parkinson's" on the back. So I had a great team of people that were there that walked, and some of them ran with me, and I'm pretty lucky. I have some great supporters.
Well, I wish you the best of luck at the marathon. How are you feeling with this just kind of a couple weeks away?
I try not to think about it too much. I think about it enough to think you have to, get on the treadmill today, that kind of thing. But I try not to overthink it. Parkinson's doesn't like nerves. So I try not to think about it too much, but think about it enough to get running a little bit.
Great to talk with you, Natasha. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
Natasha McCarthy from Mount Albion, and we mentioned Natasha's blog. Again, you can find that at natashachronicles.blogspot.ca. It is 23 minutes now past 8 o'clock.